almost 10,000 deportations, and some of the toughest criminals, 10,000 in a week. The president is looking for, what, 1,800 a day?
That's right. As Donald Trump is actually enforcing the immigration laws of this country, it's the drug epidemic, it's the crime, it's the fact that if you live along the southern border, you're affected by this cartel activity. I mean, we've seen, Sean, just in the last couple of days, multiple cartel members have fired at our own border patrol. And you ask yourself, why wasn't that happening a couple of years ago? Because they weren't empowered to do their job. The border has become so lawless that we're actually in.
Wow, guys, the more I get to understand the kind of America Joe Biden was actually ruling before Donald Trump came to power, the more it actually reminds me as if I'm listening to the realities on ground in South Africa. Because when you listen to Vice President J.D. Vance here about Donald Trump's war against the gangs in the U.S., the illegal immigrants, it almost feels like you're listening to the reality of what many South Africans have been calling for in South Africa. I know many South Africans have actually been, going around this whole issue with illegal foreigners, zamas, foreigners trooping in the country through the Limpopo River, that the borders are actually so porous. Leon Scribe actually trying to push, Home Affairs Minister Leon Scribe actually trying to push, a lot of things here and there to really secure the borders in South Africa. And when you listen to the fight that Donald Trump has actually waged now against the gangs, we know that there are lots of gangs in South Africa, gang violence, and all of that. It's just almost stunning. Like when you listen to what's really going on in the US, it almost feels like this is actually South Africa, all right? And J.D. Vance in this video is actually exposing, a little bit more of the personality of Donald Trump and, his plan to really, I think he said the president has a goal to deport as much as 1,800 illegal foreigners per day. And that's actually kind of like, that's a huge goal. But I mean, like, he actually argues that Donald Trump is not really joking about that. It actually is a really top priority of his policy to really kick most of these illegal foreigners out of the US and, work together with the number they would eventually have to really build prosperity and all that. And many times I really wonder what this possibility would be and how it would look like in South Africa if, the government of the day really resumes to really do what it takes to really get to kick out, the gangs, the crime, warlords and all that in South Africa. I remember I usually tell you how South Africa has been argued by statistics, especially from near the Bay, especially that South Africa has as much as 82 murders a day. It's almost like the second or the third murder capitals in the world, because I used to argue that it was the first until I saw the numbers from, I think, Mexico and all that. But anyway, South Africa has a really high, murder rate, that feels like the country is in a war, but it's not in a war at all. And then, the whole illegal foreigners, the guys who come into South Africa to mine gold illegally, which South Africans call zamas, and all of that, how to get all of that number out, and also how to eventually seal the border, especially the Limpopo River, from where it has been argued that many Zimbabweans actually swim into South Africa, and all of that. I just really makes this video now with J.D. Vance exposing Donald Trump's plan to kick all the illegal foreigners out of the US, just makes me really reminisce on the possibility of what it would look like for a South Africa like this to probably round up all of these gangs, especially the gangs, that actually have been, involved in all of this protection money and all of this, what that war would look like. And if probably President Ramaphosa, or I don't know which leader, would actually be able to stand up and actually enforce this. Let's quickly listen to J.D. Vance as he exposes the strategy Donald Trump has to really kick gangs especially, and illegal foreigners from the United States, and share your thoughts in the comments.
I've known President Trump for over 30 years.
Sure.
Had a close relationship with him in all those years. And he and I, when he was thinking about running, we had arguments for hours deep into the night about, I said, I'm not voting for you if you're not a conservative. Mm-hmm. You really are now getting to know him very well.
Sure.
What have you learned about him?
Well, it's interesting. One, I've learned that he has the most interesting decision-making process of any person I've ever met. And I think it's what makes him such an effective leader, is that when he actually is thinking about doing something, he doesn't just ask, like, his closest advisor or some policy person. If it's going to affect a business, he'll call the business's CEOs. He'll go and try to talk to the workers. He tries to take inputs from everywhere, and I think it's one of the reasons why he's so in tune with where the American people actually are. But it's also, I think, one of the geniuses of the way that he makes decisions is that he actually tries to talk to everybody. And that's something, honestly, I could write a book just about the way that he gathers information from all sources. Wow. And it's very unusual. I mean, in Washington, most politicians, if it's a national security issue, they'll talk to their national security person and maybe, somebody else in their office. If it's a business issue, maybe they'll talk to a CEO. The president talks to everybody, and that's a very, very profound thing about the way that he actually operates in Washington.
I would describe him as a force of nature, and there's nobody else like him.
Yes.
And I think in many ways he's misunderstood as well, because I know the personal side of him and I know the business side of him. And as we've seen hundreds and hundreds of executive actions, yes. And you've been here barely a little over a week now.
Yeah.
Pretty speed of light. It's speed of light.
We've, I think, accomplished, honestly, more in 8 days than the entire Biden administration accomplished in 4 years. And of course, the things that we're accomplishing are actually good things, and the things they were accomplishing were mostly bad things. But the president has incredible energy. I mean, this is something you hear other people say about him, and it's hard to really appreciate it until you're up close and personal. I don't know how much he sleeps or if he ever really sleeps. I mean, you'll get phone calls from him.
I can answer that. Okay. He doesn't sleep a lot.
You'll get phone calls at 1 in the morning, and he'll just, he'll talk about policy, and he'll talk about your family, and he just, there's something incredibly energetic about him, but you sort of need that, actually. The federal government has become so sprawling, and the bureaucracy is so unresponsive to what the president actually wants to do, that you kind of need somebody in there who's constantly on. It's all gas, no brakes. That's certainly what we've seen in the last, 8 days. I think it's what we'll see for the next 4 years.
When you look at, for example, the two biggest issues in this campaign, immigration and the economy.
Sure.
And because that's impacting the people in Ohio.
Of course.
Right?
Yep.
That's impacting their life hard. And
that's
a lot of Americans have been really hurt. There was a study that came out, like 56% of Americans can't withstand a $1,000 emergency.
Sure.
It would be devastating for them. That scares me. I've been there. I've lived there. I know you've been there.
Of course.
Not fun. Not where you want to be.
Not fun at all.
And when I think of, the issue of immigration in particular, I'm looking at, we have known terrorists in this country.
Yes, we do.
have known cartel members, known gang members. We have known murderers, rapists. And I'm watching the reaction of the left and the left-wing media and the Democrats. And, we're back to Nazi fascists, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini. And I'm like, what part of these other people are you missing?
No, it's totally crazy, Sean. And if you look, there was the guy who went viral a few days ago that we deported, 17 violent criminal convictions, and was actually saying...
The guy from Haiti.
The guy from Haiti. Yeah. He was saying, I hate Trump, I love Biden because Biden wanted me to stay in this country. Is there a better endorsement of Donald J. Trump that a violent criminal who shouldn't be in this country doesn't like him because Donald Trump is actually enforcing the immigration laws of this country? And it's everywhere, Sean. It affects everybody from all walks of life. It's the drug epidemic. It's the crime. It's the fact that if you live along the southern border, you're affected by this cartel activity. I mean, we've seen, Sean, just in the last couple of days, multiple cartel members have fired at our own Border Patrol. And you ask yourself, why wasn't that happening a couple of years ago? Because they weren't empowered to do their job. The border has become so lawless that we're actually engaging in military-style engagements just to regain control of our southern border. And thank God we're actually doing it this time, because if we had another 4 years of Biden and the Democrats' wide open southern border, it would permanently and I think irreparably transform this country. So yeah, we're doing immigration enforcement in a big way. We're also doing things to lower the cost of energy, because of course if we can lower the cost of energy, we're going to make food and housing, groceries, everything else more affordable for American citizens. And that really is, you're exactly right. That is the two prongs of the Trump agenda. We want to create more prosperity and we want to create more security, and we're doing a lot. We're going to do a lot more.
I want to ask about the economy in a second, but We saw Tom Homan. I mean, I don't think there's anyone
Talk
more...
about a force of nature.
Yeah. I've tried to make him smile. I've had no luck. If you pull that off, that would be a miracle. But I've known him a long time. I have a great admiration for him.
Me too.
And almost 10,000 deportations, and some of the toughest criminals. Kristi Noem out on that ICE raid in New York yesterday. She was on TV with us last night. Amazing. 10,000 in a week. The president looking for, what, 1,800 a day?
That's right.
And, you know, that's a pretty ambitious goal.
It's ambitious, but you need a leader who sets ambitious goals and actually holds people to meeting those goals. If you think we've got 20+ million illegal aliens in this country, we have got to get these people out of our country and regain control of our own border. And it's not just the people that we're deporting. If you look at the number of illegal entries on January the 19th, the last day of the Democrats' administration, I believe the number was north of 1,300 illegal entries. 5 days later, we had already cut that by more than 60%, and I guarantee we're going to cut it even further. Policy matters. Elections have consequences, and President Trump ran explicitly on regaining control of the border and redelivering American prosperity. That's exactly what we're doing. And it is funny, Sean, to hear the media and the Democrats howl about this and say, well, you know, this is bad, this is terrible, you know, this is, like you said, fascist, Nazi, blah, 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 blah. The president promised the American people he was going to do this. They gave him a mandate, so now he's doing it. That's how democratic politics in this country works, and thank God for that.
If I was in your position or President Trump's position, and I never will be, let's be clear, but if I was, I think what would keep me up at night is the fact that we have known terrorists in the country.
Sure.
And we have murderers in the country, and rapists, and violent criminals, cartels, and gang members, as I said. I'm worried about an attack on the homeland, Mr. Vice President. How worried are you?
Well, look, I am worried, Sean, because we were given a country with hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe more of known terrorists that are in the United States of America thanks to the open borders of the last administration. So it's our job to worry about it so that hopefully we can prevent that attack. So it's something that does keep us up at night. It's something that the government is working on very aggressively. We've got great intelligence services. We've got great border enforcement. We're trying to identify the bad guys and get them out of our country because, look, what you don't want to have happen, Sean, is let's say we take a foreign policy action that some foreign terrorist organization doesn't like. Well, now these guys, they're not in Syria or some foreign country. They're in our backyards. They're in our cities. We have to get them out to make the homeland safer, but also to empower the president to do the things that he needs to do when it comes to national security. So it does worry me. But we also have a government that's actually tackling this issue. It's getting better every single day.
How do we find them? I mean, you have known terrorists, but you don't know where they are. Known cartel members, but you don't know where they are.
Well, it's crazy, Sean. Sometimes you're right. We don't know where they are. Sometimes we actually do. And that's one of the craziest things of the last week, just for me. You ask what is shocking to me, it's that many of these violent criminals, we knew their addresses, we knew their names, we just needed to send somebody to go to their house and get them the hell out of the country. That really should shock the American people.
We've known where they are?
Exactly.
And we've known they've had terror ties?
We've known at least that they had violent criminal backgrounds, and we haven't done anything until about 8 days ago when Donald Trump became the president of the United States again. It really should shock the conscience of the American people. One of the things you heard on the campaign trail, one of the criticisms of me and of the president was, well, yes, we have 20 million illegal aliens. We have, close to 1 million violent criminal illegal aliens, and we don't know where they are. It turns out we actually do know where a lot of them are. We just haven't had immigration enforcement, and that's what's changed so radically.
That actually gives me hope that we can protect the homeland, because I would imagine if you're a terrorist and you're in our country, you're not here to pursue a better life for you and your children.
Right. Yeah.
You're here to plot, plan, scheme the next attack on our homeland. And I lived through 9/11. I don't want to live